Hello, this is Kittens cycling in Spain. Following the yesterday's cycling of Covadonga in Asturias, today I'm going to cycle the another very famous climb in Asturias, which is Langoliro. Again, from my stay, which was at the south of a town called Gijón. If I cycle all the way, it will be too much of the distance. So I brought my car to the little town called La Vega, parked my car here, and started cycling. Just outside the parking lot, I met this friendly Spanish cycling club, and they were very kind and gave me lots of advices to climb Langliru. But honestly, my Spanish isn't that great yet. I'm learning it every day, but still, it's not good enough to freely communicate with the locals. So most of the words I couldn't understand. But still, they were very nice. And it's when you go traveling, it's always nice to meet the local people, especially they share the same hobby with you. So, Langliru, this climb, when you search this climb in Google Map, it will say Alto de Langliru, which is the peak of Langliru in English. And the climb just starts right after the town Vega. And this is categorized as HC climb, which is the hardest climb category in cycling world tours. And for me, it's my first time to experience the HC climb. As you see in the picture here, the total climb, the length is about 14 kilometers, and the total climb would be around 1,200 meters. Just as same as Covadonga that I cycled yesterday. The two-third of early part of climb is relatively easy compared to the latter part. And the truly hard, the brutal climb starts about 5 kilometers from the finish line, especially the 3 kilometer portion. Average grade more than 15% really tears up your muscle. So you can see here is the last flat ground before the hard climb starts. Also here on the left is the fountain named after the famous pro cyclist Alberto Contador. And I just went past this fountain, which was a huge mistake for me. Because like yesterday when I climbed Covadonga, the weather was seriously hot for October, temperature recording more than 33 or 35 degrees, and I was quite overdressed, so it wasn't just the sheer steepness of the climb that made me suffer, but the dehydration made me constantly get out of the saddle. And at the top of Langoliru, there's nothing but just rocks and barren ground, and the 2 water bottles that I brought with me were not enough to quench my thirst. The water in Asturias is very clean, so most of the time you can drink water right from the tap. But when you're climbing Langliru, that Alberto Contador fountain is the only source of water you can get during the ascent. And now I have reached the true hard climb of Langliru, and I think this is the point where the steepness of climb first reaches more than 20%. I remember it was a little bit less than 21%. And like Covadonga that I climbed yesterday, there's a lot of cows on the road, and that fountain that the cow is drinking water from is definitely not drinkable. That's only for cattle. And you can see here that almost on all of the major climbing portions, there are signposts mentioning about the average grade and the steepest grade of the portion of the climb. And there are more cattle coming down the road, and the fact is they all look quite cute except for their very sharpish looking horns. But when you're going up these extreme hills, sometimes you have to use the whole width of the road, but those cattle on the road could block your way and make the climb even harder for you. However, besides that, seeing these cows on the road are quite fun, and definitely a bit different from Ireland, where I'm living in. And in Ireland, it's usually sheep that block your way when you are on the road on your bike. And as you climb higher, the view becomes even better. But as many Langoliru cycling reviews say, it's almost impossible to enjoy this beautiful scenery because you have to concentrate all the focus on the road. And it was so funny to see the Paradiso sign, which means paradise in Spanish, because for me at this point it felt like hell, not haven. These white chalk writings on the road, I think it was for this year's Vuelta a España, which was held about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I heard that these chalk writings, they all wash out when there's a rain. But however, for the past 2 or 3 weeks in Asturias, the weather was exceptionally dry and hot, so I think that's the reason why there's still writings left on the road surface. And here, as you see on the sign on the right, this part was the hardest part that I experienced in Langoliru. I think the length is about a little bit less than 1 kilometer, but the average grade is almost 17%, and the maximum grade hitting 23.5%. And like I said, I was already suffering very much from dehydration. My water bottles all depleted. So eventually I had to get out of saddle and walk the remaining about 200 meters up. And one thing I really realized in this Langoliru climb, besides to dress up properly and bring enough water, is that it's very important to know the points, especially the points where the gradient of the slope becomes really steep. If you know that points, you will be able to plan whether to push yourself or just to save energy. However, if you don't know that, especially for the cyclists like me who were not really strong to climb Langoliru, everything becomes even more difficult. And now I have arrived at the summit and only about 1 kilometer to go to the parking lot. And it's truly a blessing, like it's really relaxing to cycle this flat terrain after all those very steep, hard climbing. And you can see, unfortunately, there's nothing, no shops, no cafes, no restaurants on the top of Langoliru. So at this point, I was suffering really much from lack of water and dehydration. But still, the good thing is the only thing left is descent. So I can just put up with the lack of water. However, I asked this couple with their motorbikes and if they had some extra water with them, and they actually had some, and they very kindly offered a small bottle of water for free, which was enough for me to quench my thirsts and cycle back down. This is my drone shot of the place, about 500 meters from the summit parking lot. Actually, the summit wasn't that of a great spot to fly the drone, so I flew my drone there, and it's interesting to see that little bit of like a signpost thing. There's a uh, names of, I think they are the names of the champions, like the stage winners of Vuelta España. You can see many of the famous pro cyclists' names on that stuff. And like I said in my Covadonga video that I just uploaded just before this video, that in Spain you cannot fly drones in national parks, and but fortunately the Slangoliru is very beautiful, but it's not a part of Spanish national park. So I could fly my drone, and the drone I'm carrying with me is DG Mini 2. But I'm more and more enticed to purchase the new, I think it's DG3 Mini Pro, because it looks like that drone can fly, can track you quite well when you are not in places with many obstacles like forests. And here you can see the true beauty of the landscape, because even though I recorded everything when I was climbing Langoliru, you really cannot enjoy the view when you're climbing because you are suffering a lot. Because I was suffering a lot, and I had to concentrate all my focus on the road, my muscle, my leg, and my wrists and everything. But when you're descending, you can see everything. The only thing was this loan bike where I rented in Oviedo bike shop. It had a quite nice disc brakes. I think it was Ultegra hydraulic. Hydraulic brakes are really good. But from time to time the discs got overheated, so I had to stop and wait for brakes to cool down. And now I'm passing by the place where the true hard climb starts, with campers and parked cars, and finally arrived at La Vega, where I started my today's cycling. And this is it for my Spanish cycling video and my trip in Asturias. Overall, honestly, the views and scenery weren't as good as Switzerland, but they were good enough, with lots of mountains in compared to Ireland. In Ireland, there's almost no mountains. And the food was good. Food was very good. Callos, the soup made of cow's stomach, was very good. And it was also good to practice my Spanish. And yeah, sometime maybe next year I'll come back with even more training and make myself fitter. And now I know, because I've cycled Angliru one time in Covadonga, I know the points where I have to truly push myself, and after that I can relax a little bit. Those points, knowing those points, I thought is really important. And thank you for watching, and see you in my next video.